When zoo animals pace the metal bars of their enclosures or lie in front of the viewing windows, it's easy to mistake them for docile, tame creatures. But these creatures can still deliver a fatal attack when stupidity, naivety, and complacency meet them head on. Hit like and subscribe. This is Fierce. Tiger Attack, Mr. Zhang. On January 29th, Mr. Zhang took his family and friends for a day out to the local zoo. It was Yunggor Wildlife Park, also known as Ningbo Zoo, located in the Yinzhou district in eastern China. Mr. Zhang, his wife, and children met Mr. Li and his wife at the zoo's entrance. However, as the women began walking toward the ticket office, Mr. Zhang pulled Mr. Li to one side. He had an idea. Maybe they could sneak into the zoo and avoid paying 130 yuan or 18 US dollars. Unfortunately, their plan was about to go wrong. Horribly wrong. There was a fence blocking their entrance to the rest of the zoo. There were warning signs pinned to the fence. They warned visitors not to enter. There was something dangerous on the other side of the fence. Mr. Zhang and Mr. Li ignored these and began pulling themselves upward. When they reached the top, breathless and eager to see what was on the other side, they gasped. They had just scaled the perimeter fence of the tiger enclosure. Several feet below them were three majestic tigers. The two men, by now, had been spotted on CCTV. Mr. Zhang had got this far. He wasn't going to turn back now, but Mr. Li hesitated. He didn't like the idea of jumping into the tiger's den. Before he could relay his concerns to his friend, Mr. Zhang leapt off the fence and into the enclosure. The three tigers immediately turned their heads toward him. His heart thundered in his chest as one stood up and began walking over to him. The crowd on the other side of the moat couldn't believe their eyes. What was this man doing inside the enclosure? Mr. Zhang had foolishly believed that the tigers were docile, semi-tame beasts. But he couldn't be further from the truth. A second later, the tiger launched its attack. Weighing in excess of 130 kilograms, 300 pounds, and with 9-centimeter, 3.5-inch long canines, Mr. Zhang didn't stand a chance. He was immediately floored by the animal, and screams were heard in the crowd. The tiger gripped Mr. Zhang in its powerful jaws, shaking him like a rag doll as he desperately tried to fight back. The other two tigers trotted over. Was this going to turn into a feeding frenzy? Zookeepers rushed to the enclosure. They immediately fired a powerful water hose at the animal, but it didn't stop. Then they set off several firecrackers. The loud bangs hammered through the air, and the other two tigers scampered away. But the tigress who had taken Mr. Zhang down continued to devour him. The keepers had no choice. They gave the order to the special police, who raised a rifle, took aim, and fired. Now, both bodies lay in the tiger's den. Bear attack, Ma Lin. If you think Mr. Zhang was foolish and naive, then you could hardly blame a young child for thinking along similar lines. Ma Lin was 6 years old, and he was a very special boy. At the age of 3, he could play complex pieces on the piano. His parents sent him to Lushun Youth Palace, a center which nurtured his musical talent. It was clear that Ma was destined for great things. But one day, his hopes and dreams came crashing down. His parents took him and his friend to the local zoo. Ma loved visiting it. He had been hundreds of times before, and his favorite animal there was the brown bear. The young boy truly believed that the bear was his friend. He would sit and stare at the giant through the metal bars of its enclosure, and this visit was no different. Ma rushed to the bear enclosure, eager to show his friend his favorite animal. Ma threw some food at the bear, and it lumbered over and gobbled it up. Then, when it was just feet away, Ma saw his opportunity. He had always wanted to stroke the bear, to see what its fur felt like, to feel that connection between boy and beast. He stuck his arm through the metal bars, straining to reach the animal with his fingertips. But a split second later, the bear grabbed his arm in its jaws and yanked Ma hard against the metal. Ma couldn't get the bear to drop him. The jaws were clamped down so tightly that he couldn't move. He tried desperately to tug himself free, but a small 6-year-old is no match for a fully grown brown bear. Ma fell over backwards. When he looked up, he saw the shocking sight of his hand in the bear's jaws. A couple passing by saw the boy and collected him up in their arms. There was no time to call an ambulance. They ran out of the zoo into a waiting taxi. Their quick response saved Ma's life. But that's not where the story ends. Ma, the brave little 6-year-old, didn't give up. His dreams of becoming a professional piano player were over, but he turned his attention to something else. Something that would make him world famous. He took up table tennis. And just like with the piano, he excelled. His right arm had to be amputated at the shoulder, so he learned to use his left arm. By the age of 11, he was the provincial champion, beating all the able-bodied children. He went on to become world champion and secure gold in the Paralympics. Crocodile attack, Jerusalem Zoo. Not all zoo attacks happen on naive visitors who are unaware of the dangers. Sometimes the most experienced animal experts find themselves at the mercy of the very animals they have devoted their lives to. Clarence was the crocodile. He had been raised by a family for decades, but when his owner, Dr. Reginald Morris, passed away, he was donated to Jerusalem Biblical Zoo in Israel. He became one of a few crocodiles in the concrete paddock. He was well fed and, by all accounts, relatively well looked after. But he had a ferocious appetite, and his wild instincts ran deep through his veins. On Sunday, August 18, 2024, the world was about to find out just how raw his wild instincts were when he turned on his devoted zookeeper. The 45-year-old zookeeper, who has never been named, had worked in the profession for 20 years. He was the most experienced keeper at the zoo. He had all the qualifications and all the years of experience under his belt. But sometimes with experience comes complacency, and there's no room for that when you're inside the enclosure of one of the most powerful predators on the planet. Before crowds made their way into the zoo that morning, the keepers carried out their daily tasks. The crocodile keeper opened the metal gate into the croc enclosure. He spotted the crocodiles straight away. They were at the far side. There was a small section of fencing that needed to be fixed, and the keeper got to work right away. Whilst he kept one eye on the animals, he quickly began mending the fence. But something happened. Clarence the croc scuttled up the concrete banks of the dried-up pool and rushed at the keeper. He looked up just in time to see the devastating jaws clamp around his torso. He screamed for help, but none came. He was alone in the toughest battle of his life. But the keeper had one thing on his side. The crocodile pool was empty. Clarence had nowhere to drag his victim. He couldn't rely on drowning his prey or disorientating it with a death roll. Instead, the crocodile had to rely on his tremendous bite force, the most powerful in the animal kingdom. The keeper's body was crushed under the power. The muscle was torn from bone. Blood spilled onto the concrete surrounds, and he could feel his body fading. But he refused to give up. He kept on fighting, and just when he thought he could fight no more, a hero arrived. His cries for help had been heard by colleagues, and a radio call had been made to Nati Cohen, the security officer. Nati jumped on his motorbike and raced to the croc enclosure. And that's when he saw the haunting attack unfolding. Immediately, and without hesitation, Nati ripped his gun from its holster and fired at the crocodile. He hit it several times, and it lurched backwards, reeling in pain, before scuttling off. The keeper was pulled from the enclosure, still conscious, but barely alive. He made the 10-minute journey to the trauma unit at Hadassah Ein Kerem, where he underwent 9 hours of surgery. His condition since is not known.